Welcome to the Southern Voice. Here's your host, the Southern Voice himself, Jim Harris.
Hey, welcome back to the show. We have a great episode for you today. We have the conclusion of our three-part series with drummer extraordinaire Artimus Pyle. Plus, Tanner Jones from the Comancheros is with us to tell us about their new album. It's live and it's smoking, really making some noise, so you're going to want to check them out. Let's get started back with Artimus. I know from what you've told me that you don't consider yourself a tech guy, but you put a lot of effort into staying in touch with your fans and your musical family. Let's talk about that.
I've never touched a computer. Now, my phone is an Apple. It's an iPhone. I know it's a computer. To keep in touch with my grandchildren and my children, I text, and that's about it. I do business with my phone. 14,000 people have my telephone number because I don't have a computer. And I give my number to people when I probably shouldn't. Like on birthdays and when Gary passed away, my phone blew up. My phone blows up on every time somebody in Lynyrd Skynyrd has a birthday, every time there's any kind of an occasion that surrounds Skynyrd. My phone blows up because so many people have my number. But it's the way I do business. It's the way I keep in touch. I try to answer everybody back with a heart and say thank you for thinking of us. Because I know it's the people that reach out to me, they want to reach out and touch somebody from Skynyrd. And I'm that guy. So as long as I can do it, I'm going to leave my phone open. I'm not going to change my number. I'm not going to block numbers. I'm going to stick with it and ride this out.
You're being very generous with your time with us today, and it is very much appreciated.
Well, Jim, I spent hours after our shows signing old albums and tickets that people had from the days, a concert that we didn't make it to. We crashed before, they had bought their ticket. I think most of them were like $6 a ticket, $6 to come see us. And I always look at it and go, wow. I try to sign it as best I can. I don't sign boobies. I don't sign people's boobs. So guys will come up and say, hey, man, sign my wife's butt. And I'm like, I don't do that. Ask your wife. That's offensive. Shut up. But I will sign just about anything I can get my signature on for people that have to have a keepsake and T-shirts and old albums and stuff like that. And I always update them and put Bob's name on there as well. And, of course, always mention Ronnie Van Zant, the Freebird. So I'm definitely in touch with the people. And let me tell you, Jim, this is the first podcast that I've really done. I did one with that guy from Fozzy. He's a wrestler, and he's got a little podcast he does out of Atlanta. And he has a band called Fozzy. It's a rock and roll band, and he's a professional wrestler. I think I sat with him in his place and did a little short podcast. Of course, everybody's always, like Howard Stern, always fascinated with details from the plane crash. All I can say is, if I know the answer, I'll tell you. A lot of people want to know about the plane crash, and Howard Stern is fascinated about details about that. So your podcast is the first real one that I can think of that I did. I've done interviews, lots of interviews.
Well, we are very honored to have you with us. And also, before we get off of the subject, I want to point out that for our listeners that are looking for a great rock and roll gift for someone, on your website, you have signed drum heads available. And that is just a cool gift for a Southern rock fan.
Well, it is. But see, those drum heads, I was on Fox News, Fox and Friends in the morning, last October 20th. It was the 45th anniversary of the plane crash. Our management company at the time out of Nashville set up about 6 TV shows, interviews down in all these different boroughs and Greenwich Village in New York City. And I was on Fox News, and I was given permission to talk about the fact that Dolly Parton was on our new album, and she's singing Freebird, and that I got Gary on there, and that I could go ahead and kind of release the information about the album and let people do pre-orders. Everybody jumped on board, and you get a drum head that I personally signed, which I did. I signed like 1,000 drum heads. Believe me, it's not easy. It's tedious. And I had an idea of how to do it and make it easier, but my management company at the time didn't listen to anything that I said. Management companies out of Nashville, Tennessee, they don't really want to hear anything the artist has got to say. They want to pretend like they're going to set their artist in stone and their legacy. when really it's about the talent of the artist, whoever that may be. They naturally, of course, did not listen to a word I said, and they put out all this information. So I signed 1,000 drum heads so people wouldn't feel like they got cheated. But the album has not been released yet because of certain artists dragging their feet with their lawyers and their managers and their record labels. As I said earlier in this podcast, I had no idea getting the artist to say, yeah, I'll sing on your record was not just the end of it. You had to go through like 20 more of their people. So we've about got it taken care of. We've got the contract signed. We've got everything in place. Dolly's album is going to come out in November, and Dolly gave us permission to let our album out before hers because both of them have Freebird on there. We're on Dolly Parton's new album. We're number 30. She did 30 songs. I mean, she's amazing. We're Freebird, right where it should be.
I know for a fact everyone is looking forward to this album.
And it's coming, Jim. I promise. I put out a couple of videos saying, hey, everybody, I know we promised we'd get the album out. We haven't done it yet. It's all on me. I take full responsibility. That's my name. I'm Artimus Pyle. I'm sitting here and I'm telling you, we're doing everything within our power with the lawyers and managers and all the bullshit to try to get the album done and out there and to everybody so they can hear it. And I know that the drum heads went out there. I don't get a penny of that money. All that $150 for an album and the drum head, that money goes into escrow, and that money goes to pay back our record company out of Texas before anybody sees a dime. I just want everybody to know I don't do this stuff for money. I like to get paid like anybody else, but I am motivated by the music and the band of Ronnie Van Zant. That's my motivation. And my band, Brad Durden, Jerry Lida, Dave Fowler, Scott Rains, and myself, the five of us, we play the Lynyrd Skynyrd music with the heart and the energy and the ferocity that it should be played. And I'm so proud of my guys. We've been together for 15 years, and they are the basic track on our new album. I didn't bring in Nashville session people. Our album is performed by our band, and we've been playing those songs for 15 years. We've gotten pretty damn good at it. We brought in Sammy Hagar, of course, the great Dolly Parton. We brought in Brooks and Dunn. Ronnie Brooks sings Sweet Home Alabama. We've got a bunch of great singers that put their hearts and souls into these performances because it's for Ronnie.
I'm going to ask you to stay in touch with us for a lot of reasons. Number one, because you're a hoot to talk to and you have so many great stories. But I'm going to ask you to stay in touch so we can keep folks updated on the progress of this project.
I've never touched a computer, but the band they're computer savvy. All of my band are businessmen. I'm 75 and they're all like 55. And they're successful businessmen. They have beautiful wives and children and homes and businesses. They're not a bunch of yahoos. They got our office set up. They're all computer savvy. So if you go to the website, I believe it's artemispyleband.com, you can see the updates. And believe me, brother, when that album is ready to actually ship it, we're going to be the first ones to say, here it comes. So we're hoping before November. I've heard October. I've heard through the grapevine that there's several dates before November being thrown out there that would be strategic dates to release the album. That being said, go to that website and it'll tell you everywhere we're going to be and exactly what time we're going to be there and whether I'm wearing boxers or tighty whities.
One thing I always enjoy doing in an interview is bringing up something that my guess is that our listeners have never heard before. Now, as you said, you've done a lot of interviews, you've done movies, your story's been well documented. But there is one thing that I'm guessing a lot of our listeners may not be familiar with. You and Ed King wrote a song that Billy Cyrus recorded on a 2017 album. The song is called The Freebird Fell, and it's a great song, but I'm guessing that a lot of folks maybe never made the connection that you and Ed wrote a song for Billy Ray Cyrus.
Okay, I'll tell you the exact true story of that. I was at a gig at TPAC, Tennessee Performing Arts Center in Nashville. The Black Crowes were there. I think it was Charlie's birthday. Anyway, all of our tour buses were lined up outside. I had one of mine there. I went in, and backstage, Billy Ray Cyrus was standing there, and I was introduced to him. He was really excited to meet somebody from Skynyrd. And I said, well, Judy Van Zant, Ronnie's widow, would you like to meet her? And so, he was like, yes, certainly. So I introduced Billy Ray to Judy, and they talked, and Billy Ray told Judy how much he loved Ronnie and the songs. And anybody from Nashville, any artist that's out there now, that's been for the last 35, 40 years, any one of these artists out of Nashville owes probably a lot to Ronnie Van Zant. They'll be the first to tell you that, yes, they were influenced by Ronnie and his songwriting ability. So anyway, I hooked Judy and Billy Ray. Well, I get a call from Billy Ray, and he wants to write a song. And he told me a story. And the story is that Billy Ray was a little kid. He was standing at the bus stop, and he had a little transistor radio with him. And he heard on the radio that our plane had gone down, that we had crashed. And he said he started crying, and he skipped the school bus, skipped school, and went home and played Lynyrd Skynyrd music all day long on his phonograph. I told Billy, I said, you just basically outlined a song. And Billy Ray said, yeah, man, let's write that. Let's write it. And I said, Billy Ray, I am not a songwriter. I am a drummer. But I'll tell you who you should write it with. And I put him in touch with Ed King, because Ed King is a songwriter. Excellent songwriter. So Billy Ray and Ed, they asked me a couple of things about the song, and I gave a suggestion, but I did not write the song. It was Ed King and Billy Ray Cyrus. Okay. But they did give me a third credit on the song as songwriter, which that made me feel really good. I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for credit when I wrote That Smell with Ronnie Van Zant at that night, and we took it to the band the next day. I didn't ask for credit, but I know in my mind and my heart and my soul that I wrote that song with Ronnie. So Ed and Billy Ray gave me a third credit on the day the Freebird fell. I was honored. I was like, well, thank you. And I get a royalty check about once a year for 82 cents. And I've never cashed one of them.
It's still a great story, and I think a lot of people will be surprised about the connection. Also, I have to say that you, obviously, in the world of Southern rock, you and Ed King are certainly big deals, and Billy Ray Cyrus is certainly a big deal, but you guys were not the biggest deal on that album because his daughter, Miley, appeared on one of the tracks, and I think at the time she was probably one of the largest stars in the world, so...
Oh, and that same album.
Yeah, she was on a track on that album. So, yeah. But anyway, I wanted to share that. Also, you mentioned your band, and there's a connection to one of your members that really ties into a band that I've just always thought highly of, and I thought they really should have broken big. And that is Brad Durden, who is your vocalist and keyboard player. But years ago, he was in a band called Copperhead. And Copperhead, going back to my phrase, horsepower, had horsepower behind their debut album. They had Tom Dowd as a producer along with Rodney Mills.
Got some horsepower there, brother. Yeah, we love Brad. Brad sings and plays for us. He's got a beautiful voice. Every time we go out, he steps up. He's been through it a lot in his life. And Copperhead, I live in the area where Copperhead was from. I'm close to Lenore, North Carolina, which is about 20 minutes from here. I'm in Morganton, Salem, North Carolina, and that's where all the guys were from in the band. Of course, Brad was from up in Asheville. Copperhead, Tom Dowd. Tom was a really close friend of mine. I love Tom. He and I did a few projects together, and having Rodney Mills and Tom Dowd on your album, you can't go wrong, except for one thing, that the label had already moved on to some other bands. They dropped Copperhead like a hot potato without any explanation, just like record companies do.
All of our listeners should check out that album because it's definitely worthwhile.
It is. They were a really good band. They had a great singer, their lead singer. His name, I think it was Wayne. he was a force to be dealt with, from what Brad said.
Before you and I talked, I shared with a couple of my drummer buddies the fact that you were going to be on the show. And so I've been given a couple of questions huge fans of yours want to ask. So can I throw them out at you?
Yeah, man.
So in your Skynyrd days, your stage outfit, if you will, pair of shorts, cotton socks, gym shoes, no shirt. Was that a expression of style? Was there a functional reason? What was the genesis of that trademark outfit, if you will?
Speed. That's the one word explanation. I wore no jewelry, no rings, no necklaces, no shirt. I wore the lightest pair of gym shorts, white cotton gym shorts that I could. I wore knee socks, which was the style for some people at the time. I had knee socks. And I wore Adidas Country tennis shoes. And the Adidas Country shoe had a little nose, a rubber bumper on the front that was perfect for my bass drum pedals. And on the back, it had a little rubber bumper that came up the back. And it was perfect for my pedals. It was almost like the Adidas Country tennis shoe with 3 green stripes. It was like British racing green, Kelly green, my favorite color. 3 green stripes, the Adidas stripes. And with the little nose and the little heel plate, little rubber bumper, it was perfect for my bass drum pedals. So all of that was for speed and because I sweat, like a horse when I play. And a lot of the outdoor shows that we did, it's not like it is today where there's a covering over these gigantic stadium shows. Back in the days, it was just a big open bare stage with very little covering over the stage. And so it was hot. And I wanted to be as cool as I possibly could be. Dressing light was just for speed and comfort.
Okay, that's a great answer. Thank you so much. And my friend Tom will be excited to hear that. Next drum question. When you joined Skynyrd, and you mentioned kind of how you initially worked with Bob, did you have a deal with a drum manufacturer that supplied you, or when you started out, were you playing your own kit?
I definitely not have a deal. I was just, I was just a guy out of the Marine Corps that carried his drums in his Volkswagen microbus at all times, just in case something came up that I could jam at a club or at a birthday party or at a Pizza Hut opening or anything where I could set up my drums and play drums. That's what I had. So I bought my Slingerland Jazz Rock kit, all chrome, 2 toms up, 2 floor toms, double bass drum, at DeFiore's Music House in Cleveland, Ohio, with my $1,000 getting out of the Marine Corps money. And that was the set that was on the album cover on the back of One More from the Road. That's my kit. And I owned them. I took them apart every week, put them back together, oiled them, polished them. I took care of that set of drums like you would not believe. And my snare drum of choice was a Rogers Dynasonic, 6.5-inch Rogers Dynasonic. That's what I used on Saturday Night Special and most of that album. So it was a Rogers snare drum that I got in the Marines before I got out. And then my Slingerland kit. And that's the kit that I rolled down Peachtree Street in the movie when I auditioned for Ed King and Leon. That was the kit that when my Volkswagen, it got what is called vapor lock. Volkswagens are air-cooled engine, and it vapor locked on me 3 blocks from the audition at Alex Cooley's Electric Ballroom, which is the old, right across from the Fox Theater on Peachtree in Atlanta. So I carried my drums those 3 blocks, and it took me 3 trips to carry all the cases and everything up there. I left my bus in the middle of the road with the emergency flashers on because the gig was more important. And I got back 3 hours later, my van was still sitting there.
Wow.
So I couldn't believe it. So, and then vapor lock had let go. That German engineering, right? I hit the key and the damn thing started right up, man. I couldn't believe it.
Another drummer question. Outside of people that have been a member of Lynyrd Skynyrd. You've shared a bill with a lot of great Southern rock drummers. Who stands out?
Well, nobody played drums like Butch Trucks. I can play like him. I can mimic Butch Trucks a little bit, but nobody played like Butch Trucks and that Rolling Thunder, the way he played. And J-Mo always played off of Butch. Then again, you've got Paul Riddle, the drummer for the Marshall Tucker Band, who is one of the greatest drummers of all time. He has more technique than anybody you can imagine. He is a proper drummer. He teaches. I can see drummers from this region, and I can hear them play, and I go up and I say, Paul Riddle taught you how to play, didn't he? And they go, how did you know? And I said, because you have technique. And then, of course, Keith Moon influenced me, and of course, John Bonham influenced me. But if you made me say one drummer of all the drummers, and believe me, I'm a jazz guy. I like Billy Cobham. I like Omar Hakim. The list goes on and on and on. I can name 10,000 drummers that are better than I am. Some of them are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, too. That's kind of a big deal, I found out. Ronnie Van Zant got me in the Hall of Fame, not my drumming. The one drummer that I would have to say, if I had to say one drummer that is above all the other drummers in technique and talent and ability and his set, his actual kit, it would be Neil Peart.
Hard to argue with that.
I love Neil, and I wish I could have met him. I met him briefly years and years and years ago when we were on the same bill, and they were this little unknown band from Canada. I thought then when I saw him that, wow, this guy is a monster, but we didn't talk, and we didn't keep in touch over the years. Another guy that I love is Simon Kirk from Bad Company. Simon Kirk, every time Ronnie wanted me to play something on a song, and we were talking about it, every time Ronnie wanted me to, let's say, play something simple, he would say, Artimus, play it like Simon. And Simon Kirk is such a monster drummer. He's one of the most in-the-pocket drummers you've ever seen. So all the drummers on this planet, past, present, and future, I love them. I got all of my licks. Every lick that I've got, I took from some other drummer and maybe did a variation on a theme to come up with something that somebody thinks is just my lick. But it's actually a combination of jazz and rock and bluegrass and every music you can think of. I've combined that to come up with how I play drums. But Neil Peart has to be the guy that I say, if I only had one to choose from, I have to give it up to Neil, because he wrote those songs. He wrote those words. He was much beyond a drummer. I don't think you can get much better than Neil as far as execution of drum licks. I don't know many drummers that can execute Neil Peart. I can't, like he plays it. I can attempt it and make it sound kind of like Neil maybe, but I can't play like he does. And I can attempt to sound like, Butch Trucks, but they had true technique and styles. It's just like if somebody asked me, what is my favorite guitar player? And I have many. I have many, many, many. Jimi Hendrix would be the first that comes to mind. But if I had to choose, think of all the great guitar players that I played with in Lynyrd Skynyrd. Ed Keane, Gary Rossington, Alan Collins, Steve Gaines, just to mention a few of the greats.
Right.
And then I played with Stevie Ray Vaughan. I've jammed with Eric Clapton. If I had to choose one guitar player, there is no doubt in my mind, it's Jeff Beck. And, we just lost Jeff within this year, and nobody can make a guitar sound like Jeff Beck. And of course, every time he plays, he's always got a great band with him. I told some young fan the other night, they were really young and they were a drummer. They were with their friend that played guitar. And they asked me, who was my favorite guitar player of all time? And I said, Jeff Beck. And they kind of scratched their head a little bit. I said, look this up and download this music. An album called Wired.
Oh, yeah.
And an album called Blow by Blow. I said, you listen to those two records. There's no vocals on it. There's no vocals on either one of those records. I said, you listen to those 2 records, it will change your life, and you will hear what Jeff Beck is all about. I think they probably did it. They actually put it in their phone. You got to spread the good word, right, Jim?
Absolutely.
All the guys in my band, they grew up on Lynyrd Skynyrd music and Southern rock. They were playing it their whole lives, as soon as they started playing. Jerry Lida and Scott Rains. And as you mentioned, Brad Durden. Brad, he's the one who bought our bus for us. We call her Pearl. It's a 1999 40-footer plus Prevost, and we keep it clean as a pin. It's pearl white, so we call her Pearl. We've got a great driver. Our driver, his name is Eddie Toney, and Eddie drove for Taylor Hawkins. He's driven for the Stones. He's driven for everybody, and he only lives about 15 miles from me over in Forest City, North Carolina. So we're really lucky to have him. He just got married. I got to go to his wedding, and I appreciate the opportunity to spread the word that we do have a movie that's out there that's got an incredible soundtrack. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. So will the movie. It's very intense. We have a new album coming out with Dolly Parton on it, singing Free Bird, and a whole bunch of guest vocalists that we've been working very, very hard on and going through all kinds of crazy, jumping through the hoops to get it done. And plus, Dolly's got a new album coming out, and we're on her album. She did a song with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. So on the credits for Dolly's album, it says drums and percussion mentions for Dolly's album, and there's 2 gentlemen that are session drummers. And then it says Artimus Pyle, Christopher Pyle, my son. And then it says Ringo Starr and Mick Fleetwood.
That's pretty lofty company, isn't it?
My son called me. He said, Dad, I'm in tears. And I said, so you saw it, right? You're listed right next to Ringo Starr and Mick Fleetwood. And he goes, I can't believe it, on Dolly Parton's album. So you talk about some horsepower, brother. Whew.
Well, you ain't kidding. Well, Artimus, listen, this is going to have to be multiple episodes because we've got a lot of really good stuff here. But I want to wind down with one very, very important question. I understand you're a huge fan of the Andy Griffith Show. What's your favorite episode?
Well, it's just like somebody asked me, what's my favorite Skynyrd song? After everything that's happened now, they're all sentimental to me. Every single song means a lot to me. I think about the band and everything as we're playing. And sometimes I get emotional. Sometimes the tears come. I just suck it in and get through the song. But at Gary Rossington's funeral, Gary and I used to be really close. And we would get into the hotels. We'd go straight for either his room or my room. We'd roll up a big fatty and we'd watch Andy Griffith. And so everybody in the band and everybody in my band now, we all love Andy Griffith. As you were leaving the chapel at Gary Rossington's funeral, and there was the overflow chapel where I was, and there was the main chapel, all of Gary's famous guitars. I'm talking about it, his SGs, his Les Pauls, his Stratocasters. All of his beautiful, famous guitars were displayed all over the chapels. And pictures of Gary and his children, his grandchildren. And I really missed Gary, but we were kept apart because the management company, they knew if Gary and I got together, there'd be less money for them to steal. So they kept Gary and I apart. And it broke my heart. But I was able to create that bond with the Dolly Parton project before Gary passed away. And we were able to text back and forth, a nice little thread of text. As I said, I will cherish them for the rest of my life. So Gary and I did get back on the same page just before his death. However, they kept us apart for years, and I missed him. And I miss him right now. As we were leaving the chapel, they played the theme song for the Andy Griffith Show.
Oh.
And I thought I was going to make it. And as I was walking out of the chapel and they played that theme song, man, it broke me down right there right in the threshold of the chapel, man. They were playing that theme song, and I mean, it hit me. It hit me hard. Paul Rogers from Bad Company spoke words at Gary's funeral, and Paul spoke about what a gentle person Gary was. And Gary was a gentle person. Everybody in the band, they were all crazy dudes, and they had their quirks, but every one of them were generous to a fault. They were all unique and amazing people, and I miss every one of them. And walking out of that chapel and hearing Andy Griffith, man, it all hit me. I had really hard tears, but they were tears of joy, because no longer is Gary being pressured to make that damn money. Gary is in a parallel universe on the biggest stage ever seen, ever known to man. He's on a parallel stage in the parallel universe, playing music with Bob Burns and Ronnie and Billy and Alan and Steve. That's what I believe. There's something beyond this. But it really hit me when they played that theme song. And I think it hit a lot of people. There wasn't a dry eye in the house, in other words.
I can only imagine.
But it was cool. It was hard in a way. It was like Gary basically saying, look, I'm no longer in pain, and I don't have to worry about anything. And enjoy, you know. And so it was a bittersweet moment for sure, Jim. Before we sign off, I just want to say, Jim, I appreciate you putting up with me and taking the time for this. I want to say to all the plane crash survivors, I love you. I miss you. I know we all got off the beaten track over the years, and a lot of people have used greed against us to turn us against one another. All of the rescuers down in Mississippi that helped save our lives, to them, to all the people that have kept Lynyrd Skynyrd music alive, to all of the radio stations all over the world that have continued to play Ronnie Van Zant, Lynyrd Skynyrd music like it never left. It's a big deal. And I just want to send peace, love, and happiness to everybody on this planet.
Artimus, for a kid that when I was in high school wore out probably 6 or 7, 8 tracks of One More from the Road, which was our standard issue that we listened to on the way to school and the way home from school every single day. I can't tell you how great it is as a fan to be able to spend time with you and hear all your great stories. It's an honor. It's an absolute honor.
Well, Jim, let's get together, man. I appreciate you saying that. And I put it all on Ronnie Van Zant. That's the reason that we're able to talk. Ronnie's prolific songwriting made all this possible. So let's get together. Maybe you come over from South Carolina to Morganton, North Carolina. I'll show you around my town. We can talk. You can ask some more questions. Maybe you can see my band or come to a rehearsal for Pyle Tribe. We rehearse in Old Fort, North Carolina every Tuesday. And maybe we can get together and take this on down the road a little bit.
Oh, I would love that.
I'll talk to you soon, man. Call me. You got my number.
Absolutely. In this week's covers, we want to recommend a remake of a rock classic. In 1971, Humble Pie released the live album Performance, Rockin' the Fillmore, and one of the most memorable cuts was I Don't Need No Doctor. The version that we're going to recommend is also a live cut by the band Vixen. They made their mark in rock in the United States in the 80s, and they're still recording and playing to sold-out crowds today. In 2018, they released an album called Live Fire. It was recorded from a series of shows in Chicago, and it includes their version of I Don't Need No Doctor. And make no mistake, it rocks. Definitely worth a listen. All right, we want to welcome Tanner Jones from the Comancheros to the show. Tanner, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, now you guys have a little bit of downtime right now, but you're getting ready to head back out. Is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
Our goal is we really want to kind of introduce your music to our listeners that maybe aren't familiar with it yet. So Let's kind of get into that to start with. You all bill yourselves as heavy Western, which is not a traditional category. And honestly,
Sure.
after listening to your catalog, I'd say you may be heavy Western, but somebody in the band at some point in time had some Skynyrd and Blackfoot and Molly Hatchet and Marshall Tucker records. Am I wrong?
Oh, no, you're right. You're totally right. That's all of us.
Somebody may hear something about Western and think it's all going to be kind of steel guitars and that kind of thing, but you guys have some wicked crunch in a lot of your tunes.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah.
Now, you guys have been out recently with bands like the Ozark Mountain Daredevils and the Kentucky Headhunters that are known for bringing a really big stage show. And it's obvious that you hold your own because you keep getting invited back, but give us kind of a glimpse into what a Comancheros show is like.
We're a three-piece. I play guitar and sing, and John, he plays bass and sings. Then we got Michael back there on drums. So you expect to see a lot of hair flying around, a lot of heavy riffs, probably some action with a sword. It's we try to get as wild as we can.
So you definitely make sure that people keep their focus on what's going on the stage.
Absolutely, yes.
In recent months, you have been out with Them Dirty Roses and the Georgia Thunderbolts, and it really seems like the three of you, those three bands, are really kind of creating their own genre. Has that thought ever crossed your mind? Have you ever paid attention to kind of the niche y'all are forming?
Yeah, and it's cool to see how many of their shirts that I see when we play in the audience, and when we play those shows together, it's like you can really tell that having us together on a bill, really, it's kind of like a 1 + 1 = 3 sort of situation. But
we've had both of those bands on the show before, and I would say that for folks like me that are from the golden era, if you will, of rock and roll, the 70s and early 80s, that this is new music that really fits in the wheelhouse of the music we came up with.
Sure, yeah.
So now you guys have released 3 albums, and number 4 has recently dropped.
Yes, correct,
okay.
Yeah.
Number 4 is a live album, and there's something really unique about how that album was recorded. It may be one of the few ever in history recorded this way. Tell our folks a little bit about how that came to be.
We recorded it out at Duke's Indy out in Indianapolis, which used to be run by our good buddy Dustin. He's actually since, unfortunately, passed away. We'd had a show booked in 2020 to go up and record this live album. And, of course, everybody knows what happened then. And we talked to Dustin about it, and he was like, well, I'm going to be back in the kitchen cooking up food for curbside pickup. And he's like, I got a couple buddies who kind of just come and help me out with the place. So he's like, well, why don't you guys just come up, play the show anyway, record your live album, and it'll be to be in the kitchen and a couple of my guys out standing in the room. It was pretty awesome of him to do that.
Maybe one of the smallest crowds ever to be in the audience for the recording of a live album, but I will say I got an early listen, and it's definitely worth checking out, and it doesn't lose anything from having the small audience.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of it, yeah.
To kind of give our folks an idea of what type of music to expect from the Comancheros, if you had to name 3 songs out of your library that would really kind of give people an idea of what y'all are all about, what would those 3 songs be?
I would probably say Time Machine, We Own the Night, and Caffeine, Nicotine, and Weed. And then we've got, for a 4th bonus one, that cover we did of Skynyrd's Mississippi Kid. I really like how we did that one.
Well, it is a great album. I really enjoyed it. Besides the album coming out, you guys are heading back out. Is there any other upcoming news about the band?
Just that we got a bunch of shows coming out. We got a couple other, another full-length record we're getting ready to record. We got another EP we're getting ready to record. We got something else that's coming out that's going to be released not too long after this one. So we've got a lot of stuff coming out to look forward to.
So you guys are staying busy and producing a lot of music.
And we try to. Got to be present.
Well, we are very excited about our audience getting a listen to the live album, and it's going to be available on all major platforms. Is that correct? Spotify, Apple.
Yep, it'll be our first vinyl record, too. We did a double LP for it that you'll also be able to get.
I was told today in another interview that vinyl has come back to levels not seen since maybe the late 70s.
Yeah, definitely so. And it's there's definitely demand for making vinyl records, that's for sure.
You guys and some of the other bands out there are proving that there's still great demand for rock and roll, and that for those that think there's no good new rock and roll coming out, all they need to do is listen to your all's live album and find out that that's absolutely not true. So anyway, I want to thank you very much for being with us today, and I hope that you'll stay in touch and kind of keep us posted with news about the band.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me.
All right, Tanner, thanks much.
Thank you.
This week's Hidden Gem, we want to suggest the 1978 self-titled debut album from a band out of Jacksonville, North Carolina, Nantucket. The album sold well and had a popular single, but the band was never able to duplicate the success with subsequent albums. But this one is absolutely worth a listen. Check out Nantucket. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next week with more great stories from the world of rock and roll.
Thanks for listening.